All right, thanks for joining us on Checkpoint tonight. And of course, we're focusing on the war on graft and how far that has come. Like we said, in the recent weeks or so, it has focused largely on one individual. So how's the entire war on graft doing? That is what we want to discuss tonight on the show. And I'm pleased to have my guest with me, Member of Parliament Simba Arati, and we also have Senator Beatrice Selachi, as well as Samuel Kimeu, who is the Executive Director of Transparency International. Please keep your views coming at KTN News, at Yvonne Okwara. Use the hashtag Checkpoint. You can also send us a text message. 22155 is the number. It's absolutely free. And please leave us your name and where you are watching us from. We'd love to hear from you and sample your views. All right, so let's start with someone who's not in either side of the political divide. Samuel, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on the war on graft? March was, that calling card by the president releasing the list of shame in his State of the Nation address. Some say there's been great successes. Others say, look, we continue to unravel scandal after scandal. What's your assessment of the war on graft?
I think, Yvonne, thank you very much for having me here. I'll take you back to 2010. We look at the statistics that we have from 2010, you will see a slight dip in the levels of corruption among many of the different institutions in government. But from around 2013 there, you begin to see a gradual rise in the levels of corruption. So what we are seeing today is not by accident. It's actually can be predicted looking at the statistics that we have. And here I'm looking at both in terms of perception, but also in terms of actual experiences with citizens. You've talked about the list of shame. I think the list of shame has not given us the premium that we would have expected from it. It is true that you have over 26 files now, I think about 29 that are being prosecuted, but they have not translated into a national momentum towards greater integrity, which is really, from where we sit, the biggest problem that we see with this initiative.
And some say that then that momentum that you're talking about should have been something that the president's list of shame should have then sort of set in motion. So where is it? Is it the president who's not doing enough? Some say also the legislature is responsible for a lot of the lethargy we see in this war on graft.
The president did his bit with all its flaws, but I think it was a positive thing that he did it. I think the other institution, the other arms of government, in my view, have not done as much. Parliament, in particular, stands indicted in all this. Because remember, Parliament is our supreme constitutional oversight body.
Okay.
So if we find ourselves where we are, then we have to hold Parliament largely responsible.
All right, so let's hear from the Member of Parliament, Simba Arati. Parliament also stands indicted in this? Because court has been saying this is, the buck stops with the president.
And I want to state that the president, when you saw the president came to Parliament, and what he was doing is just purely PR.
Yet exercise. You all gave him a standing ovation.
Me, I didn't do it, and simply because I knew it was a PR exercise, because the president was not supposed to do what he did. That was not his duty. We know very well that the president, what he did, that was the work of EACC. And indeed, out of the outcome of Parliament, we saw EACC disbanded. The commissioners intimidated, and sent some, give up and left. Therefore, there is no gain, there is no momentum, as in terms of the list of the shame, all in fighting corruption.
No momentum?
No
Senator?
momentum, completely.
The president hasn't done his bit. It was all PR. Do you agree with Simba?
I don't agree with Simba, because I think Simba and me would agree today to discuss this candidly, that first of all, the biggest challenge we face is that as we talk about corruption, Parliament is not excluded in that. That indeed even our institutions are suffering on the same. And at the same time, the same politicians who are supposed to help the country to move the country, to ensure that the issues of corruption have come out clearly, the institutions are working, are the same businessmen. So what has happened in this country is that for us to move out and start discussing this, we must first accept and appreciate that when you look at business in this country, we must ask ourselves, who are the business players? who are those who go out to look for the tenders, and how are they supported and assisted by the politicians to get these tenders. And this is not now a Jubilee or CORD issue. This is now an individual ethical issue that we must interrogate if we want to start discussing candidly and openly that indeed our country is in a challenge of corruption.
Senator, do you think the focus of, the war on graft has largely, focused on one individual, and that is the Cabinet Secretary, Anne Waiguru, and that in that sense it might have lost direction?
Yes, I think what we did, we lost it when we decided now to, I always say, sort of do a mob justice, and we forgot the key issues. And therefore, even if we remove Waiguru today, then what? I'll give you an example of Charity Ngilu. We came within the list. I think she was the one who was hit most in terms of being told, you are corrupt, this is what you've done. Yet, when you look at the 3 allegations that were brought out for Ngilu, the current land, 40 of the key people are members of parliament. We never interrogated to ask ourselves, who are the members? We left it for Ngilu to carry the cross. She was told she was blocking or shielding, or we used many names. Then we went and took Ngilu on Waitiki land. In an honest manner, we've never paid the land as government, and therefore today you cannot say the kickback that we were thinking she would get, she has gotten. No. But we took it, we hyped it, we made it an issue. The last was the land of Ministry of Foreign Affairs that is at State House Road. The land is there, it's from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. All she did was put a billboard to show that this is land for foreign affairs. We hyped as politicians. Why do we do that? So that we have land, we have an art where we do things to ensure you cover up very fast. Because today, if we ask Anne, give us the list now of the beneficiaries of all the NYS tenders and businessmen, we'll be so shocked across the board. At that time, because in business, there are no names of politics. There are no, I'm from Jubilee or CORD. It's business. And we do business.
All right.
And you'll be so surprised how now people will be Kenyans will be left aback, wondering, what you mean? The same guys who have been screaming are the same guys who have money.
Are you willing to name these individuals?
Well, I think by the time Anne, if I was Anne, where it has reached, I would wish she gives us the list now.
All right, but are you disputing, then some would say that it's sort of a case of 2 wrongs, that she should still step aside. Maybe like you rightly say, the focus has been on one individual and not the rest, but some say that still does not exclude her from the need to step aside and allow investigations to carry on.
And I think one of the things, and Kimeo has just told me today, the most interesting part is that during the Grand Coalition, when we were doing these laws, there was a full chapter that was removed from chapter 6 through the cabinet that has now left even the institutions wondering, how do you ensure you step aside and your case is taken to the end and people can see results for that? And you find that our law now is so weak that we cannot just tell somebody step aside until you get the allegations, until you find Anne culpable. It will be so difficult.
Right.
And that is why it is also difficult for the list that the president brought in. And I know in the Senate we were very clear. We say that it will be very, very difficult, even using this list, to find people culpable.
Okay. Simba, a stinging indictment on the National Assembly.
You know, my colleague, she's trying to... There is the bold step that we need to take. And this bold step is just to face the things the way they are. The political posturing, and bickering and insults, when as code when we came up and told them, hey guys, you have overborrowed, you have spending, you have stealing. Instead of just a brief debate to emerge, what happens is that we have seen it in the Jubilee government. And indeed, what has happened is that the people have defeated the war on graft. It's Jubilee themselves. The lady Waiguru, yes, should be. She's a good lady in terms either in performance. But then what happens is that those ones, there is nothing wrong doing business with the government. That's one thing we must come. But then,
is that so?
Yeah. There is nothing wrong doing business with government. But then, can you meet the parameters which have been set across? But then, what happens here is that those ones who have been engaged in it and under our watch, despite the fact that the likes of Ngiru were told to step aside, and they did, we saw how the EACC commissioners were pushed out, either through Parliament or through the executive.
Parliament, of which you are a member.
Precisely. And, the abuses of tyranny of numbers, it was used immensely in putting those commissioners out, including our own colleagues in Parliament, promising those individuals positions outside the country, like being ambassadors.
Okay.
Those happened. But then,
all right. I'd like you to answer specifically the role of Parliament in A, being involved in corruption, and B, the war on corruption. We'll come to Samuel in a minute, because she says, Senator says there were other legislators who were involved in that. Why didn't we see Parliament calling for these members of Parliament who are allegedly involved to also, take responsibility?
One is that there is no list for those members of Parliament, which has come out, like it has come out for Waiguru on mismanagement of the public office. Unless and until you get that individual, if it's Zarati, you get hold of him that yes, you're involved, to be given either 1 acre, 2 acres at current. That's the only time you will be able to pay him down.
Let's talk also then about Parliament itself that stands indicted for graft, talking about the mileage claims, 500 million shillings paid for mileage not taken. Doesn't that suggest that Parliament also has a role to play in corruption in the country?
I'm not one of the beneficiaries. I don't get even one bob.
Nobody said you were, but can we talk about parliamentarians as well?
I want to put it clear, where the people brought it up, especially the members of Parliament from my.
So you were the whistleblowers of this?
Yeah, myself, Ben Mtura, and the others. Indeed, it's surprising that others, as members of Parliament, we are just members of Parliament, we go in there and our 500,000 taxed. Then there are guys who don't even travel up country who earns 2 million, 2.2
but
million
I think
without tax.
The point here is, why isn't that same noise being made about your fellow colleagues in the National Assembly and saying,
Yvonne,
look, we know it is individual X, Y, Z who represents the people of constituency 1, 2, 3. We should ask them to step aside.
Yvonne, that one has been brought up clear out with the members who actually were brought up the issue. It's not that it's a hidden, is an hidden secret. Therefore, we have said it. And we are saying there is no law supporting those marriage claims. Though we agree, for those ones who come from Samburu, of course, they come from far. But can there be a formula, proper formula, coming up with those marriage claims?
And the formula does not exist.
There is no formula. It's only on a goodwill of some individuals.
All right. Okay. Point well noted. Samuel, where are we? Because we hear of corruption in the judiciary, we have corruption in the legislature, in the executive, and we start to ask ourselves, so who's watching?
Well, I think the point that needs to be made at the onset is that corruption is everywhere. There is no place that is immune from corruption. And for you to win the war against corruption, you have to start from that premise. And then know that it's not a question of if, it's a question of when it will happen. Put mechanisms in place to deal with it when it takes place. And then deal with it when it happens in a proper, effective and conclusive manner. For us, I think as a country, we have failed on many fronts. One, because for a long time, we made excuses to say that corruption is not an issue, and those who are raising issues about corruption are busybodies who want to give this country a bad name. And it's only recently that we are beginning to acknowledge that this is a big problem. And we have not quite fully acknowledged that it's a big problem. so that if you look at some of the institutions that have been mentioned over and over again by Kenyans as being corruption prone, you don't get a consensus within on how, one, that there is rampant corruption, and second, how to deal with it.
All right. Do you think there's double standards? Because that is the big issue now. We're talking about it holistically, but many say the president is applying double standards. It applies to some and not all. And then maybe you can also speak about the role of cabinet secretaries, because that has come into sharp focus with what's happening within the devolution ministry.
Well, I think the Kenyans are complaining about double standards because there are cabinet secretaries who have been forced to step aside. And in the case of the current cabinet secretary, Anne Waiguru, I think people are wondering why is it that some cabinet secretaries were asked to step aside while she is remaining put. For us, I think we wouldn't want to get into the politics of it. We would like to insist that the standard that we set for ourselves in the Constitution in 2010 does not countenance people who have been mentioned in connection with corruption having taken place remaining in office. And I want to explain this further. I want to say that we have lowered the standard of integrity in this country so low. We've decided to use a criminal standard, which is the lowest you can get, that until you are charged in a court of law, that's the only time you can be suspended at half pay, because that's what the law says. But look at what happens in many other spaces where integrity is upheld. People are mentioned, and even before an indictment, an investigation is opened, people have resigned from their office. Here we make excuses, and you see even the system, immediately an allegation is made coming forward to defend an individual or an officer, which tells you that the system is not interested in getting to the root of the matter. They are interested in protecting certain people who might be adversely mentioned or caught up on the wrong side of the law.
Senator, he's talking about it being a moral issue, criminal aside. Should this just be the point at which the cabinet secretary says, I'm innocent, I've done nothing wrong, let me step aside. If I'm proved to be innocent, I will come back. And him talking about the defense coming all the way from State House, suggesting that, you know, there's double standards. Some saying the same was not applied for Charity Ngilu or Engineer Michael Kamau.
And I think that's what I said. As the Senate, we said it was wrong, and therefore I don't think the other wrong now will help in terms of now at this point. And I think at this point where we've reached now with Anne, it will be very unfortunate for us now to come and say we are indeed pushing Anne to go out, so that, I mean, investigations have started. I would wish we focus now more on the institution, but not to the individual Anne herself. Let us focus on the institution itself and see, because even if Anne leaves today, she has to live with quite a good number of a team. Because, I mean, we can't just say we've removed, and that's what we have been doing. And maybe that is what I'll also agree with Kimeo, that how we manage is the biggest challenge. What we normally do, we come out, we remove one individual, you leave the same guys who did the same corruption that we are talking about, and not just in Anne's ministry, in all the other ministries. It's a symptom we have been dealing with, that we only remove where the buck stops, but you forget there are those who are real making serious businesses with people quietly. And then the other thing that affects Anne, and we need to be honest now, is that Anne has got herself into a bigger challenge than what many would look at.
What challenge is that?
And the challenge is when you come into an institution and you try to block individuals who are doing serious business, the time when people never used to focus on that institution, because the only time we've come to focus on NYS is when now we decided to start programs for youth.
All right, but
in the
that doesn't though negate the fact that money was lost.
No.
And now
let's firstly look at the thing. This is an institution that used to get very big machineries and all. We had serious businessmen who were doing that business. Now, when you close that and you bring in new people to also join in and become also business partners within the same, you bring in a conflict. Now, the same businessmen will work out to ensure we will throw you, and this is Kenya. I mean, who doesn't know where people will just tell you, this one, you're not staying for long, we are throwing you out. And
however, that does not negate the 791 million shillings that I think everybody is in agreement, was lost from the ministry.
And that's what we are saying very clear. Today is not the days of Kanu, where you could not tell us who is the beneficiary of the 790 million.
Okay.
It is a clear, the IFMIS is a very clear system where you will see the transfer was done to A, it went to Bank A, and it's so clear. And by the end, we want to know who is this businessman or businesswoman who took the 790.
Okay, Simba, and then we take a break.
We can't get an answer by having Anne in the office. The best thing that Anne could do is getting out of the office. Investigation. We have seen it. Like after 1 week, we are seeing the likes of Duale coming out now, pointing fingers to Kinamangiti. What we are talking about here is that for her to be in that office, she'll continue, concealing and sealing those evidences, the one Mheshimiwa is trying to bring up, around. But then the question we're asking ourselves, despite the fact that there are so many businessmen wanting to do business, but the devolution is a relatively very new ministry. Therefore, we could not believe that there are those cronies. Therefore, what you are saying is Anne has no option. She has to step aside for her to be cleared.
Okay, all right. Let's take a pause there and take a short break.
And when we come back, just to
when we come back,
Mangiti.
you will definitely start from there with the issue of Mangiti with that one. So keep your comments coming in right now on KTN. Our discussion continues on the war on graft. Stay with us.
Can't bring Mangiti now.
All right, thanks for staying with us on Checkpoint tonight. Here are some views from you. I don't agree with Anne Waiguru stepping aside. She is clean. This is mob justice, totally against her in person. You're signing off as a senior citizen. And then here, it's true what the lady is saying, referring to Senator Elachi, that the people who are fired are the ones who are the most hardworking because someone somewhere wants to teach you a lesson. Someone else says, yes, corruption is everywhere. Every Kenyan has become a thief. If they're not stealing outright, they're bribing, evading tax, or stealing time from their employer. Keep your views coming in 22155. Senator, you were about to respond to something Arachi had said.
Yes, he talked about the PS, and I was like, if the PS really wanted to help Kenyans to understand this saga, then you don't come to a committee when you're on oath. Present a document. The document, all of a sudden, you say, first of all, is a fake document, and you have signed it yourself as a PS.
But do we know it's a fake document?
And you know it's a fake document. And then...
Do we know it's a fake document?
It is a fake document.
And that's the problem of Waiguru being in the office.
But then, that is not now. I mean, Mangiti should be trying to help himself to come out of the mess also. So there's no way you can carry a document all the way. It means you didn't even study the document.
All right, but Senator, tell us why you believe this is a fake document, just for Kenyans to sort of understand why, because we've heard this coming out of the Jubilee domain.
Mangiti himself, it's not the Jubilee domain, in the committee, on the Hansard today, told the chairman, this is not a right document, it's a fake. He used the word, it's a fake document, and therefore I would wish to request the committee to give me time to go and bring the right document. He was given 2 weeks. But really in procedural of parliament, there the chairman needed to have put Mangiti on the spot, because you can't come to a committee of parliament, present a document, and anyway, how do we receive documents in parliament? Through the clerk. At that time, he came with the document, he had photocopied those documents. So he gave everyone a copy of the same document. Why should you give people a document you have photocopied yourself and then come and say again, you fast track and say it's fake?
Which
All right.
document
No.
was this? The
Yes.
question is,
Yes.
which
When I
document
think-
was this, Mheshimiwa?
I think for me, the Parliament, the committee, is the biggest disappointment. here.
Yes.
Because if a document has been ushered and the person who has ushered it
Yeah.
says that it is a fake document,
Right.
I'll be very hesitant to allow them to withdraw that document from the record until they have given me another document
That then...
that I can
okay.
compare and
All right.
make conclusions
Okay.
over it. So the fact that the committee rushed to allow that document to be withdrawn is extremely suspicious, and may mean that Kenyans may actually not know the truth.
All right, let's talk
this
about how
issue.
the committee conducts the work and exactly what happens when we hear of some damning document and then it's reversed. Here's a case in point. The controller of budget went in and said she did not approve payments that were made to the Eurobond. And then days later, we hear her saying, oh no, it's fine, I didn't approve it, but it's okay. I'm okay with the explanation that's been provided by the CS for Treasury. When some say, in fact, it is not for her to say, I'm okay with it, but that she should have, in fact, approved the payment. Not to not approve it and then say, well, you know, it's fine, it's okay. Because
Yeah.
that is not the role of the Auditor General, the Controller of Budget.
Well, yes, I think that is where Parliament is not helping us as an institution, because Parliament, as I said from the beginning, has the supreme oversight function. And Parliament is allowing the executive to get away with a lot of unconstitutional, illegal actions. Parliament is also allowing the Auditor General's report contains a lot of findings that money was not properly spent or it was not supported. And we have not seen Parliament come out of its way to use its powers to force individuals who have not complied,
Right.
or the executive generally, to comply.
Okay,
So there is no
Simba, yeah.
incentive to comply if I have not accounted for 30% of my budget. The next year I come back with the same
Right,
budget
or even
estimates
more,
and I am
perhaps,
given
yeah.
100%
Okay.
of what I
All
ask.
right. Simba, and particularly because the Public Accounts Committee is headed by Code.
I want to say, you will see this confusion there. As long as those people who have been alleged to have mismanaged the offices, being in the office, the likes of Anwar Guru being in the office, and indeed you expect that his junior, who is Mangiti, to come around with documents, then the following day you withdraw. That shows what is going on the back.
What is that?
Definitely,
going on?
there must be some cooking. And those cookings that the Kenyans, we must be told. And the reason why we're asking the lady to step aside, that's one sole. Because when you're being told to step aside is to pave way for investigation.
So
You
should
don't-
all of them then step aside?
Especially-
the PS Mangeti, the PS for devolution,
At the moment-
the Cabinet Secretary
at
for
the moment,
devolution.
and the only thing, at the moment, if they indeed Mangiti said that the document he presented, because the document you can do, actually, it's not necessary that it has to go through the clerk. You may table the document on the floor of the House when you are presenting or you're being cross-examined. Therefore, not necessary that it has to go through the National Assembly clerk.
Okay, so for you, you're saying he was coerced, the numbers are being cooked. So are you standing by the numbers that he presented initially?
I can't stand with the numbers because I'm not.
Which
a
ones do
producer.
you believe?
The only thing I want to be sure is that what he told us earlier, that's what it stands. That the government, indeed, in fixation, there is a pen which is going for 8,000.
So those are
That's
the
what we're
figures you want
standing
to
for.
believe. All right,
Because this government is used for
let's
that.
bring in a different aspect, Senator.
Before we bring in that aspect,
please, very quickly.
because today we said we really want to help Kenyans also to understand where we are heading. If Mangiti was in the committee the previous day, tabled this document of 8,000, a pen and all that, then you come in the next day and then you tell the committee it's a fake document. Then how do we even help Kenyans to understand whether he was coerced? Because you were alone. You were not with the CS in the committee. You were alone. You came with the documents yourself.
Okay.
You presented this document yourself.
All right, point made, Senator. But let's talk about the roles of the cabinet secretaries. And we know about this circular that came out of cabinet not just a few months ago, but last year in December.
Yes.
Which talked about the roles of the CS being widened. Greater oversight in sanctioning procurement, which was formerly a preserve of the principal secretaries, and they will now also approve work procurement and cash flow plans. That would seem to suggest that Anne Waiguru should have been on top of this issue and should indeed have been able to know whether indeed a television set was procured for her office, whether there were condom dispensers worth 400,000 shillings or that sort of thing, because that falls under procurement, does it not? That falls under cash flow, does it not?
Now, before even I go there, really, anyone who has been in Anne Waiguru's office, I've been there twice or once. I've never seen a TV worth, or even the TV itself, yeah? And anyway, and that is why when you look at that registry, because now what Mangitu was presenting, in fact, is a registry. In that registry, you cannot, there are some things you can't call assets, which indeed, that registry has a lot of misappropriation of how what you call a payment voucher, an asset.
My question, Senator, is that should she not have been on top of these figures? Now, because now it's saying that it's the principal secretary. Whether you want to call them assets,
I want to come to that.
Them assets or
when
not.
You look at what was lost within the whole devolution on NYS between December to April. And at that time, the said policy was dispatched to the ministries.
Yes.
You find that everything was preceded by the accounting officer, who is Mangiti, and DG, who is Gedinji, within that time. Now, it depends. For me, you know, you can...
So you're saying all of this happened before the directive took effect?
No, I think for her, she realized, I have been working with my people, and we are working. There's a directive, yes.
Is that a fact then? Because you're telling us what she's thinking. Is that
no,
a fact?
I'm not saying what she's... I don't know what she's thinking. I'm giving my opinion now.
Okay.
That if you are working with a team, and you feel this is a team, you've worked together, you trust each other as you move on. And therefore, if your role in the Constitution, you are the accounting officer. I don't think as now, when they have dispatched this...
Right. So for her, you think it was an issue of trust?
Yes, I'm
those
thinking
people. But then
it's
still,
an issue of
if
trust.
this came to a court case then, and she was in the dock,
I'm just saying,
a matter of trust or not,
saying, in terms of
according
values
to the
and
cabinet
ethical,
directive, she is the one who would be in charge of these issues.
Now, that is now law, which is a fact.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, which many people, and I believe even within this institution, there is that understanding of how you can work in teamwork. When the
that still doesn't place her off the hook, though, does it?
It doesn't place her off the hook. But I'm just saying, it is that trust, and what do you now? What that turns out to be is that you should never trust anyone. You should just follow laws.
So why didn't she follow the law?
No. Which sometimes, and we know that everyone who has led an institution, and especially where you'd want things to work, and especially in an institution like devolution, where you wanted to see rapid response and rapid results, you'd wish to work as a team.
All right. Okay. So that being said, should she then say that I trusted the wrong people? I should have followed the law.
Yes.
And therefore, because the buck stopped
Those
with
are
me
some
based
of the
on that cabinet
consequences
directive,
that Anne will
then
carry.
she should then step aside then.
Well, we still go back to the step aside, Yvonne?
Well, if you said basically, and you agreed that according to the law, she is responsible for the functions.
In future,
so if it was
those are some of the consequences, and will always
but do you
regret.
agree with the cabinet
Why
directive
did I
that
trust
puts her
my people will deliver,
Understood.
and I'm here?
But do you agree with the cabinet directive that came out last year, December 2014, that the buck does indeed stop with the cabinet secretary?
Well, I don't want to agree with that, because by law, you know, there's one thing we need to agree, that was a directive, yes, but there's also the Constitution that is more...
Okay. And it's a good thing that you quote the Constitution, because it does say that all decisions by cabinet are binding. And I do believe that was a cabinet decision that was made collectively.
Yes, which is binding.
Yes,
but
so
also,
it should be binding
but also then there's also another article that is very clear, that gives the mandate and the roles of both. Okay. Which we have not changed also. Which Parliament
but
never
decision
changed.
That's made by cabinet is binding.
Which Parliament also never changed those rules.
So she shouldn't be responsible for procurement and cash flow.
No.
So her mistake was trusting the wrong people?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So should she step aside?
Because you also have a full committee that has a chairman on procurement,
All right.
really.
Okay, very quickly,
So
because that music tells me
there's a
it's our
process.
time to wind up. And I want to have very quickly, if you can, in a minute, Samuel, just talk about the role of business. Simba Arati had mentioned it, that, legislators do business with government. Should they do business with government? Should we now say anyone who has any influence whatsoever in legislation or the executive should not do business with the government?
Let me begin on the point of procurement.
Yes.
Because procurement is the biggest loophole through which we lose money in this country. And I think we've had a former PS say that we lose about 30% of the development budget through procurement. So if you want to fix the issue of corruption, we have to go through procurement. Now, in this country, we have not appreciated issues of conflict of interest. And it's because our politics are driven by corruption. People pay money. Business people pay money into campaigns with the hope and promise of recouping that money after the elections. So it is not a coincidence that what is happening now is happening. People are busy trying to recoup their investment in the elections and preparing for the next elections. It's a tragedy that we have to face as a country, that our political elite and our economic elite have overlapped. They are the same people.
All right. So if you want to fix corruption, fix the issues of procurement.
Yes.
Should MPs be doing business with government? Yes or no?
No, they shouldn't.
Okay. Simba? Yes or no? Just very quickly, the music tells me it's time to...
The only thing is that there is no law stopping them from doing the business.
but should they, morally?
No, morally,
they shouldn't
because they are the oversighting authority, they should not. But then,
all right, thank you.
But then I would want to urge the president, because he's the only person.
Yes.
That despite the fact that he loves Waigulu so much in the way she does her
I will not allow you to complete that statement, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Simba
really
Arati, Member of
order.
Parliament, Dagoretti North, Senator Beatrice Selachi, and Samuel Kimeu, who's the Executive Director of Transparency International. Thank you all for your time. The war on corruption will be taking your views in just a moment. Stay with us. This is Checkpoint.